A lot of the flights were already cancelled. Are we allowed to go back? Are we not allowed to go back? Every employee was suited up. This is how I came back from China back in March. Hi. So Australia Post at the moment is doing this thing where you can send in a letter about your COVID experience, and it's all supposed to go in some archive. So I thought I would write a letter and send it in just for fun. Yeah, I thought my story was kind of interesting. Not the worst story out there. I know that there are so many other people who have been affected by COVID so much more than me. So my story is a very good story, to say the least, but this is my story nonetheless. Just a little note. I came back from China back in March when everything had just kind of started up in Australia. I did not have COVID, so if you're here for symptoms or some tips and advice or anything, please go to the Australian Health website. This is what I wrote. I wrote, "Dear Australia, for us in China, I think we only had rumours of it in December, like Christmas time, and that was our peak period as well. We had a lot of guests for our resort, which is not that many to be honest, but we had a lot of guests, we had a lot of people coming in and out, a lot of employees coming in and out. People were taking holidays, going to different towns and things like that. So we had suspicions that this might be another big thing, but we weren't sure. So we were still going ahead with a lot of our normal operations and normal shows and things. From early January, we started eating separate from the guests, which we would usually sit with the guests and eat with them. It's just part of our service, what we do. That's when all the employees started having to wear masks and things like that. And our contact with guests was just like a whole lot less. So by the time Chinese New Year hit, we were pretty much sure that we were going to close. So we allowed the guests to stay until the end of their stay if they wanted to, but we highly suggested that they leave. And then I think January 29th we officially closed, and all of the employees moved into the guests' rooms so that we were all locked in one big building, which was quite a big hotel building, so it wasn't that bad. But we were all locked into the hotel building. No one was allowed out, no one was allowed in. Let me keep going. So, living inside the hotel was actually not that bad. Our general manager of the hotel had a really good relationship with the local government, so we were fortunately allowed to eat breakfast, lunch and dinner inside the restaurant, which would usually not happen. So during that time, we were supposed to be eating our meals in our rooms. They were supposed to deliver the meals to our door, and then we would stay in our rooms the whole day, and that was supposed to be what it was. But because we were all enclosed in one building and no one was coming in or out, we kind of negotiated with the local government, so we were allowed to eat within the restaurant. We had to have a limit on the number of people who could go in the restaurant at one time, and then there was a 30-minute kind of limit to how long you could stay in the eating area. We were allowed to roam around the resort, but because the resort was closed, we couldn't use a lot of the facilities, so like the pool was obviously emptied out. We were allowed to use the gym, but you had to clean it. We were allowed to use the dance studios, which was great for me. Yay. But that was it. Everything else, there was nothing around. They did have the office computers still, which was nice because I got to sneak in the office and go on the computer, and it had Facebook on it, which was great. But yeah, it was a pretty chill kind of closing time for us. We didn't have to worry about anything. All our meals were prepared for us. To be honest, at the end of it, the meals weren't great, but you know, you're safe in a hotel where the whole country is like sick. So it was pretty great. Oh, another thing, we were 3 hours from the closest airport, 1.5 hour speed train to the closest big town, and then 20 minutes bus ride to the closest small town. So we were quite far away from everything basically, so there was a very low risk that I would contract coronavirus. Next, let's go. The lifestyle in China is very different. Honestly, it's really fun, but it is very different. So they have like a whole different set of social media apps for you to use, which I didn't really use any of them because I don't speak Mandarin. I'm sorry, I'm Asian, but I don't speak Chinese. But anyway, so we didn't have any of the usual like Western social media. And when COVID did hit, all the VPNs were like blocked for some reason. But yeah, every hour a guy in the like full suit came around with the big backpack thing and he'd spray all the elevators, every room, every office, every computer. It was crazy. And then yeah, it was over 30 days that I was in the hotel not being able to do anything. We did sneak out a window one day, because where I was staying, it was like snow every day. So we really wanted to get out in the snow. So we climbed out a window onto a rooftop of the hotel and we played in the snow on the rooftop. And none of the police saw us, thankfully. So that was a good half an hour in the snow. A good break from like the 30 days of being inside the whole time with air conditioning and all that stuff. It was a really nice time to get to know my co-workers and things like that. And yeah, it took me personally 3 times to get out of China. The first time I had a flight straight home to Sydney. 2 days before our flight, the local government closed the highway to the airport. So we were no longer able to get to the airport. The second time, we were going to risk taking the train. However, that meant having to go to the hospital to get tested for COVID-19. But we had heard that there were some cases in that specific hospital, so we decided to wait again. Third time lucky, I was up late in the evening discussing back and forth with my HR manager about options. Honestly, it was now or never. If I didn't fight for this particular flight back, I would have had to wait another week. And even that was uncertain. I was yearning for the time where I didn't fear the virus, home in my sunny suburb, no longer having to take my own temperature 3 times a day. Oh, that's another thing. We did have to take our temperature every time we went to the restaurant, which was 3 times a day. But that was kind of like a normal thing for us to take our temperature. We started taking our temperature early in January. Getting flights back was actually really interesting. I was very lucky in the fact that my company was organising my flights. The first flight was actually booked by my Australian HR, which then my HR in Australia went on holiday and didn't realise that I never left China, so she thought that I was back in Sydney. But anyway, that was pretty funny how like it kind of failed because I was scheduled to go back and then I never ended up in Australia. That was on, I think, the 8th of February I was supposed to come back and I didn't end up coming back. And then it was kind of like a whole lot of back and forth with, are we allowed to go back? Are we not allowed to go back? Are we going to wait until the virus goes away? Are we going to wait till flights get cheaper? Because they just kept getting more and more expensive. And like, yeah, it was just a struggle. At first we thought we were going to open up the resort again, but that never happened, obviously. So yeah, so when I finally got the flight back, I was like, I have to get on this flight. And I'm so lucky that I pushed for that, because if I didn't push for that flight, I probably wouldn't have come back until very much later. There were 4 of us in a car, and there was about 16 or something of them in another bus. So I was in the car because my flight was the earliest flight, or one of the earliest flights. So I had to be there early, otherwise I would miss my flight. So we had to get special papers from the local government. Well, I didn't, but like the company had to get special papers from the government to use the highway and to move from local government to local government. So yeah, the highway was not supposed to be open until 8 a.m, so they kind of fought with us a little bit and asked us to wait. But I think our drivers fought back and they were like, we have to get to the airport at this time and we can't make it if we don't leave now. So we had police cars escort us along the highway, so to kind of say, oh, we're allowed to be there. And then that was kind of fun, to be honest. We felt so special. The temperature check is a big thing in China. I think at the time, because there was like zero research on it, the only thing they had to go on was temperature. So if you had a fever, they wouldn't let you through. So there was one time they were taking the temperatures of everybody on the bus, and I think there were 2 people who were over, and this is over 27 degrees I think it was at the time. And all they did was take off their jackets, stand outside in the cold because it was like minus 30 degrees, and then they went to get their temperature checked again. So I don't know if that changes anything, but like I feel like there's a lot of ways around the temperature. But yeah, that was fun, and I got to the airport in time, which was amazing. And yeah. We're almost done, I promise. So when we got into the Chinese airport, every employee was suited up. The moment you get in there, there's only one entrance to get into the airport, and then they scan you in bunches of like 6 people. So they have this massive thing that scans you over there, and then they read it. After that, you are let into the airport. You had to wear masks everywhere you go. So from the moment I left the hotel to the moment I stepped in my house, I was wearing an N95 mask. I did not take it off unless I was eating or drinking water, and that was it. It was hard to breathe and it hurt my ears. But yeah, it's just in China there's like a whole lifestyle of wearing masks, and most people were quite acceptive of that, which was kind of good. On the plane back from China, I had the whole row to myself, plus a row in front of me, plus a row behind me. It was great. And then the cabin crew came around basically every hour with water. Also, like, the food was great, everybody was so nice. Honestly, one of, okay, I wouldn't say the best, but it's one of the better experiences I've had on a plane. And I travel a lot, so yeah. It was really nice to travel on an empty plane when you're so used to like sitting in the middle and like being squashed by 2 people. So it was nice, I got to stretch and all that. The airport in Shanghai was so quiet, and because of the whole COVID thing, a lot of the walkways were closed, and to get from one side of the airport to the other side of the airport, you had to do at least 2 temperature checks. So I was like running because I didn't know how far it was to walk with like 2 of my luggages, like and so I was sweating, but I still passed the temperature check. So yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so Shanghai airport was super quiet. A lot of the flights were already cancelled, so I was very lucky to get a flight back, even though it was down to Melbourne and then up to Sydney. My other option was a business class flight, and I tried to fight for that one. I was like, please give me a business class flight back to my country. But to be honest, having a completely empty airplane was pretty much like business. Okay, this is probably the hardest bit of coming home from China. At the time, it was in March, it was when a lot of people weren't very educated on the virus in Australia. So no one really knew what it was, no one really knew how bad it was, who was likely to get infected, if there were any cases in Australia. It was all very like, we'll watch from the outside and we won't kind of get involved. It's very hard to walk through an airport being an Asian with a mask when no one in Australia knows what is going on. In Melbourne airport, I got a lot of looks, a lot of comments, to be honest, not directly at me, but it was blatantly obvious that they were talking about me, and they were very loud. Another thing, I was isolated in China for over 30 days. I was doing all the right things, I was sanitizing, we were Like, there's nothing wrong that we did. I never got COVID. I haven't even had it since the whole time being in Sydney. So I'm very lucky. So when I came back from China, it was only March. No one knew what was going on. Although I was required to wear a mask coming back from another country, if I didn't wear one, no one would know. To be honest, coming back to the country and not feeling like you're home, it made me want to take off my mask. And I was like, if I took my mask off right now, no one would know. I don't have to do the right thing. I don't have to protect these people. They're not even giving me the chance. I think when people don't know what's going on, they just want to choose somebody to blame. And when people are not educated, they are very fearful. So that definitely came across. I definitely didn't feel at home when I came home. That's all I want to say. But I was happy to be home. And to be honest, I totally understand. You can't judge people by what they look like. In my eyes, if someone was to wear a mask, it is more admirable because you're putting aside your own dignity for a country. I mean, it's not like saving a whole life, but at least you're doing your little bit, you know? So thank you to all those people who came back from another country and wore your mask and did your isolation. I salute you. But yeah, that was just to let you know how it was coming back from China in particular, how the situation was there, although I wasn't in the big cities, but it was an adventure for me and I really loved it. I don't regret going to China. I learnt a lot. It's a completely different culture and I would go there back again. I really want to explore all the nature and the buildings that they've built. There's so much culture there. I'm not sure how informative this was to you, but I hope you enjoyed my little story. I'm gonna try and film some more stuff. But yeah, let me know what you want to know about me, about my job. See you in the next video. Have a lovely day. I will see you soon.